Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I'm going to start. I haven't checked in with Dark Defender in a while. Look at this. XRP closed September candle with a doji, whatever that is. Take this positive as always. Expect retest towards 66 cents in a couple days. Breaking 55 cents gives tremendous momentum since XRP will be above the weekly, whatever those are, clouds, which will be highly bullish. XRP has broken the initial resistance. Yellow resistance will be broken above 66 cents. And XRP will directly proceed with $1.33 above 188. And then he says new all-time high, possibly 585 at first. Let's see what that looks like. All right. Boy, that looks like a confusing mess to me. But anyway, moving along. Look at this digital perspectives tweet here. He's showing Brad Garlinghouse's tattoo. He says, write it down or get a tattoo. But this has always been and always will be about XRP. Always. And I said, over the target and price. Make no mistake, it has always been about price. Mr. Intuitive, who is the official cool guy of the Digital Asset Investor channel, showed this decode by the truth warrior Ashley Prosper. So now they've gone to decoding Brad Garlinghouse's tattoo. I'm sure he sits at home and gets a kick out of this kind of stuff. Because look at this. Look how she's labeled this. Sun, Neptune, Uranus, Venus, Sirius or North Star. You know what the one that is most interesting to me? All right, these are Saturn's rings, Mercury, Jupiter, Sirius, North Star. Now look at this one. Satellite orbit. You mean like a low orbit satellite? Like Starlink? Very interesting stuff. Now, before I go into this, I'm going to tell you something. Before I started this channel, one of my favorite things was to watch 60 Minutes on Sunday night. I can no longer do it because now I have learned the hard way that our media is bought and paid for, and all they do is carry narratives that are usually not even true. It's just lies that they want to sell us into believing. And so it makes me sick to have found out by age 49 that this is how our country is run. It's like a propaganda machine, and this is one of the propaganda arms, and so is CNBC, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves, but they're not, because they're all way too arrogant for that. Which is why I have to preface it with that to now tell you this is why I have not even watched the Sam Bankman-Fried thing, the coverage they did last night, because I knew what we were going to get ahead of time. There's some reason that they want to now carry this narrative and paint. They probably want to free him or something. They're trying to paint this narrative of, oh well, he had good intentions and therefore he's not such a bad guy. That's kind of what he wanted to give his money away. I mean, if this guy wasn't created, I don't know who was. And I said, hey, 60 Minutes. Now do ETHGATE, the real crime you're trying to distract from.
A month later, Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas and extradited to New York to face federal charges that he had fraudulently used customer deposits to finance billions of dollars of venture capital investment.
Don't forget, now how do you cover this whole thing? I mean, there's so many tells, but you cover this whole thing. What about the parents, the two tax attorney parents who happened to probably come in handy by having this thing located in the Bahamas? Remember the org chart? Sam Bankman-Fried didn't put that org chart together. It was like a tax haven's dream, that org chart. All of the way the funds flowed through this and that, and then somehow they made their way to Ukraine. This thing's shady as all get out. And of course, 60 Minutes isn't going to talk about any of the things that are shady. I can't watch any more of that. That makes me sick. Oh, speaking of sick, CoinDesk was promoting this yesterday. Coy Garrison brings a wealth of experience to State of Crypto 2023 after years at the SEC. His expertise in advising fintech, so they're promoting him being at the State of Crypto. Well, guess what? Coy Garrison was the, I think, senior advisor to Bill Hinman. He was also an advisor to Hester Pierce. These are the kind of things that taint you in the truth world, that is. But there's a different world they're trying to construct. John Deaton, this is the video I put out yesterday. Let's see how many views that thing got. 103,000. Of course, that's because truth sells. Truth gets views. Truth in a world of lies gets views. This isn't a very difficult lesson, CNBC. A lot of us out here in the XRP community get more views than you do because everybody knows you're full of crap. Check this out. This is John Deaton commenting on it. This is Joe Grundfest, I'm quoting, arguably the most respected former SEC commissioner alive today. Jay Clayton had fireside chats with Grundfest at Stanford. Grundfest worked as a liaison with Stephen Nerioff between SEC and Vitalik Buterin. Ethereum Joseph Lubin, helping the ETH founders. Grundfest believes in the SEC as an institution, even though he worked on behalf of ETH founders. When he found out Clayton Hinman were going to sue Ripple and claim XRP was a security, he spoke out, writing a letter pleading with them not to hurt innocent people with no connection to Ripple. He also argued ETH and XRP should not be treated differently. Okay? There's going to be more on him in a minute. This is an interesting tweet. Gary Gensler is just a pawn. The real fight over the Bitcoin spot ETF is between the banks who need cheap funding and asset managers who want high returns and flows. It's JP Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman, and Citi versus BlackRock, Fidelity, Franklin, and Invesco. Game on. That's the first time I've seen these put at odds with these. Very interesting. I wanted to show you this. This was XRP Bart, who I did meet in New York. He's got his XRP flag out on Wall Street. I love it. You gotta love that. And he's here in front of the New York Stock Exchange. Look at that. Cool. That flag needed to be flown there. Stephen Nerioff popped back up. He's been putting out some great tweets. I love it. Cray questions. Do attorneys ever collude with an agency? If so, would it be advisable to just somehow hire the attorney at the agency? Obviously, these questions are geared at banana republics who don't have entrusted institutions like the SEC. And then down here, he's commenting on this tweet. He says, hashtag Dirty Hinman 2 in July 2017. There's some great comments going around Twitter right now. Here's one from Truth Labs, who's been uncovering ETHGATE. It's going to be an interesting Q4. The time has come. I've been waiting for this. I hope you are ready. Oof. Then there was this one. The repercussions to the whole crypto community will send ripples through time. History books are being written here. Stuart Alderati tweeted this. Unelected bureaucrats, get back in your lane. Supreme Court in new term looks at curbing power of federal agencies. All right, then I went back and I grabbed some Grundfest clips because I think, this is something you may not know, but Grundfest was an advisor to Ripple in this lawsuit. He'll say it in one of these clips. But first I wanted you to see this because Grundfest knew.
Now, when it comes to these initial coin offerings, obviously a lot of opportunists out there either creating their own kind of bespoke coins or just essentially trying to rebrand themselves as a blockchain or Bitcoin play. Is that an area that the SEC or other regulators should become more active in right now? Or is it just, hey, it's buyer beware, this is just like Beanie Babies?
Well, number one, it's not just like Beanie Babies. Number two, let's remember what happened with Beanie Babies. A lot of people lost money over there. Number three, this is a more straightforward situation. A very, very large percentage of these initial coin offerings fall squarely within the traditional definition of what a security is. These coin offerings are not registered with the SEC. As a legal matter, they're required to be registered with the SEC. And the interesting question from my perspective is, what's taking the Securities and Exchange Commission so long in terms of initiating actions to shut down many of these ICOs, many of which are pretty blatant frauds?
ICOs are fraud, speculative, and speculation drives innovation. So they're very important in creating foundational infrastructure.
Now, look at what this guy here says. They all knew. I think he's right. I think, if you remember, those of you that were around, when we started to uncover ETHGATE, we didn't just start to do it it didn't just drop out of the sky. It was in Ripple, in their legal responses in their lawsuit with the SEC, was pointing to these things. I got curious. Some others got curious. I started looking around. And I think that even Ripple was surprised by some of the public comments by some of these arrogant SOBs that we were able to find. And I think that it helped to stoke the fire that should have been there to begin with. Here he is again. Here's Grundfest again.
Gensler's request for legislation, the way I read it, was a massive cry for help. All right? Because I don't think the SEC really knows what to do with this situation.
Well, the reason they don't know what to do is because they know that they got busted trying to rig the system and rig it for Ethereum and Bitcoin. And once they got busted, they were in a corner. They didn't know what to do.
It had the job to write regulations. All right, and Commissioner Pierce, she's got her proposals, but the probability that would get critical mass at the agency is not huge. And I think quite wisely, Chairman Gensler is saying, look, we need help from our bosses, and our bosses here are Congress. So Congress, you tell us how you want to handle this. In the interim, I'll be very candid. I'm not impressed with the job that the SEC is doing in this case. Right. And by the way, let me disclosure, I'm an advisor to Ripple in the XRP litigation. So I just want everybody to know that. I don't play these games as some others do. So in my view, this is not the set of issues, many issues that should be resolved through litigation. These are issues that you need to face and you need to address through regulation. It's been a battle at the agency for decades over the notion of regulation through litigation. All right, and this, I think, is one of the best examples of a case that's being inappropriately litigated when instead the matter should have been dealt with through rulemaking. Because you litigate this stuff, you're not going to get any guidance for the market. Everything is going to be so narrowly focused on what the circumstances were in this particular case. You're not going to have expert testimony from technologists and all sorts of other people that you need in order to come up with a rational policy. It's not going to help the world. All right. What you need is have some, guidance from Congress. We need clear positions from the SEC to explain what works and what doesn't. And we know litigation will never get you there.
And then finally, I had a question for Stephen Narioff. Remember the video where Stephen Narioff, before they did the Ethereum ICO, he said he's on the phone with Joseph Grundfest, and Joseph Grundfest then turns around and calls the SEC and says he's come up with this idea as for Ether as a fuel, so it's like a product, and the SEC loved it. And my question is, Stephen, do you know who at the SEC that Grundfest was communicating with? Who thought your idea was so brilliant and blessed the ICO, the letter in Lubin's pocket? Who was that? Because that was back in 2014, right? So who was it at the SEC who was blessing all of this and was so excited that they figured out a way to put some duct tape on Ethereum and make a security look like a non-security? Who is it that was so excited, and why? I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and ask your friends and family who at the SEC in 2014 was so determined to put a Band-Aid or some duct tape on Ethereum and get it through the doors so that they could issue an illegal security. Thanks for listening.